right, welcome back to another episode of Into the Valley, where today we will be looking back on Charlton's frustrating 1-1 draw. Might be enough looking at the results that have come in, but I think a game that was earmarked really, well, I mean, it's 100% earmarked as a must-win. A draw is not the end of the world, but we've once again left ourselves in a position where we're somewhat relying on others. In a position, in my opinion, we should never be in, but we are. I think we've got to take positives out of the position we're in the table, but don't know your thoughts, but the game itself.
You know what, like you said, we earmarked it all as fans. I think like when we knew we were desperate for points at the end of the season, those were the games we picked out. Probably that and the Preston game, maybe, because they were in poor form at the time. But the Sheffield Wednesday one was, we knew what situation they were in. They're down and out. Like they've been out of the race for a long time. So in hindsight, in a weird way, that puts them in a strange position because they've almost got no sort of... They've got no jeopardy whatsoever, so they can sort of just play however they want. But we know they're littered with youth players with a lot of inexperience, and we needed to really go there and exploit that part of them in terms of like getting a foothold on the game. And that's one thing we've been terrible at all year, and we go over it every week pretty much and say how our midfield can't really dominate a game. We saw it again, like lack of creativity. The bright spark was Godden starting, because obviously he has shown once again how important he is to us, and he can provide that little bit of magic and things like that. But apart from the sort of highlight of his goal, maybe the chance where he hit the crossbar, we created barely anything, and we really didn't look like a side who were scrapping for their lives to just get us over the line. We looked like a team that were pretty devoid of any sort of creativity, and it was painful for me to watch that.
I mean, it was 66% possession to them. Eye-wateringly. I think this stat sums it up to me. In the game, total passes 518 to Sheffield Wednesday, 265 to Charlton. And what I felt watching the game was that Sheffield Wednesday, if you were to not tell people the context of which team were which, I thought Sheffield Wednesday played like the team who needed that win just to kind of get it over the line. And I know they are desperate to get that win because of the awful run of form they're on. I thought what was very apparent with them, and what maybe surprised me when their goal went in, is I thought, for everything I say there, they didn't look threatening in actually creating that chance. I thought they were doing a lot of kind of playing it around, and actually some quite nice football when you're actually watching them. But it was nice football with no real purpose, no real end product. And for that, it was a game that suited us well, but we handled it, in my opinion, dreadfully. The way we tackled the game, the player performances, I thought tactically we got it wrong. I just thought there was so many that you would have thought that's the game that everyone, when you've got 4 games left of the season, you're looking at the fact we could have won this, and pretty much...
I think we'd be safe if we won today.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much safe. And I think, as I say, we're relatively fortunate. As much as most results went against us, I think the most important ones went for us. And I think that was Oxford and Leicester, which cuts them adrift a bit and now leaves them with really having to kind of Houdini it out the relegation zone. But as I say, nothing we do safety-wise when it comes to the tail end of this season will be down to our efforts. It's been how we've got ourselves into a position where we've relied on others just baffles me. And it's performances like this that just highlight, for me, how far adrift our squad is. And tactically as well, how wrong we can also get it sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, like, from what I've seen, the consensus online after the game is that actually people wouldn't mind that result if it was we went hell for leather, properly like bombarded them and just went for it, and like we were exposed at the back and maybe we concede a silly goal in that regard, like because we're pushing on too much. When it's that turgid, very sort of uncreative, very hard to watch style of football, the result becomes harder to swallow because you're not even seeing glimpses of anything that really makes you think actually there's something there. Now, I know, like, the way I look at it is that I don't actually give a toss anymore. Like, in terms of the style of football we are playing, we're right at the back end of the season. Does it matter that much now? Like, let's get it over the line. Let's get it done and dusted. Clear out a lot of players in that team, because actually I think like we'll probably do an episode on this at the end of the year, albeit hopefully being still in the Championship.
He'd be a good League One player.
We might not be doing a clear out if we go down, but at the moment we are still massively short on Championship quality players. I think that is the crux of it, and I think Jones, actually, if you really look at it in the grand scheme of things, Jones, if we do stay up, has done a good job, because with the squad that he has, the argument that a lot of people will say is, yes, he's limited on the style of type of player that he has, but he could still be more. The way he picks the team and the tactics he used could still be used in a better way. Maybe that's the argument.
Is Sheffield Wednesday, for an example, the prime team that you could argue that as an example? Because they are littered with youth players, yes, but I wouldn't say they're littered with Championship quality players, yet they do still play a style of football, and yes, they've got problems
It's possible. You see it. There are other teams out there that are probably on the cusp of League One Championship quality, but they play with a much more expansive style of football and something that actually offers an attacking side to the game. Because actually, when it feels to me like the chances we create in games come from individual brilliance a lot of the time. It's not through like playing through the lines
or bundly.
or bundly, or from a long throw. We seem to, all of our goals seem to come from a long throw, which, okay, fine. It gets us results. It gets us points on the board, but we cannot go down that route long term. That has to be like a one season thing, keep us up. And hopefully that's what Jones is sort of eyeing up is, okay, let's get it across the line and then we can move forward in the summer.
There's always been, hasn't there, this talk about staged plans and where we're going, and the fact this is stage whatever in our development. I think the flip side to that, and as we've kind of discussed there a little bit, but I think this season was all about one goal, and I don't think it matters how you get there. I can understand why fans get frustrated. I can understand why, when there is performances like this, I think there's questions over maybe starting lineups and style of play we're going into it. What I think I've accepted over the course of the season is I'm not sure with this team, especially as an overnight change where players, we have fans saying we should go for this game, we should do this, we should do that. I'm not sure as a tactical setup and as a team, without a real switch, which might be over summer months and whatever, are capable of playing expansive attacking football. And actually, sometimes when I looked at that starting lineup, I think you could easily look at it and say it's negative, it's defensive. You've got Cody, Doherty, your Burks. Like, it's all very, very defensive, very safe. But that's arguably where we are at our best. And I think the unfortunate side of that, and where I feel maybe positive going into these final 3 games to an extent, is we've got to pick up. A win would do it now. A couple of points would probably do it. We probably, as a style of football, play better or are more effective. I don't know if play better is the right word, but definitely are more effective against probably better teams. That's where we picked up majority of our points.
I was just about to say as well, that the other thing is we are playing Ipswich and Hull, and although they are teams batting above, up the league, like obviously Hull are playing for the playoffs, and then you've got Ipswich obviously going for the second spot. There's pressure on them as well. Like, they're going to come to us, both obviously at the Valley, those games, and they're going to be coming to us knowing they need to get results.
You've got to go look at Ipswich against
this is it. And also, we also know Charlton play quite well against the better sides, because we, for some reason, when we play teams around us, we seem to just take our foot off the gas or just don't offer anything. But we tend to put up more of a fight against those top teams. So it would be interesting and intriguing to see how we get on in those games, because obviously we are desperate for that. A point might be the golden one because of what happens around us.
There's an argument to say, and we're once again, it's one we're going later, but when you actually look at where the table is and the gap we've now got, there is an argument to say where we are currently might be enough. I don't want that. I don't want to be relying on. I think the last thing you want to be going into any relegation scrap is relying on another team and their results, because one of those teams, and an Oxford, for example, could pull something out the hat, do 3 wins in a row. It seems very unlikely, but if they did, we'd be in a whole realm of trouble.
And we've also seen teams around us that we've been like, they're not going to win that game. Yeah, but
Pompey
we
have now won 3 in a
fixtures,
row and
yeah.
turned round, and I had Pompey as favourites with their
Well,
lineup.
we did the rundown of their
Yeah.
fixtures, and we were like, oh, they're probably not getting
Pompey
much from
and
any
Oxford
of
were
this.
my pretty much guaranteed.
It's
to
just
drop
how it
in, so-
goes. Like teams all of a sudden start picking up points, and then you get dragged back down, which is exactly what's happened.
Yeah. Before we go into the game itself, starting lineup wise, obviously a Burke coming in for Kane Ramsey, who by all accounts picked up a little bit of an injury, hamstring. Harry Clark back in there, which I was happy with. I thought that was a positive. I think as much as we saw some glimpses from Fevrier on that right, I think Harry Clark definitely gives us that balance of attacking to defensive. Cody stepping in, and then obviously Godden coming in as well up top. What was your? I mean, I've said I think it was defensive, but probably the right lineup, albeit you could maybe switch a few players out. But
do you know what my thoughts were? I thought what Jones was doing there was he was putting in players that he trusts and players that he knows have experience. Burke, he's worked with a long time under his management at Luton, and I think he trusts him as a defensive player. I think he put in Cody for we spoke about, we missed probably Cody in certain games where we didn't have that leadership and that sort of voice. And I think that's why he got put in, was for that sort of control that middle and also talk to people around him and get everyone on side.
I think my only one when I looked at that starting lineup that I would question was, with Cody already being quite a defensive option.
Yeah.
I think I would have liked to see Rankin Costello in there over Doherty.
Yeah, I could have.
And I think actually where we look at a lot of what we missed in the midfield and where we got dominated in the game, a Rankin Costello might have just helped.
Yeah, no, that definitely would have.
Some of that back.
Seeing Godden start was a positive for me. Like he offered a lot in the last couple of games, albeit coming off the bench. But again, I think that's a player that Jones knows can make a difference in the game, and obviously we ended up seeing that in this one. But so yeah, the starting lineup, I wasn't too disappointed. I thought actually it was a solid lineup, and I thought that was more than enough on the pitch there to actually get us a result.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't grumble too much about the lineup. I thought it's pretty much what I would have gone with. I think pretty much.
No, I agree. It's sad. I mean, there was much to it that I would have looked at and changed. We weren't disappointed with the lineup, but let's go into the first half. That's where the disappointment starts.
Horrible to watch.
It was, and I think the thing is, as I say, they dominated the ball so much, so much more than I was expecting. I thought when we played them at the Valley before, I thought actually for all of their, they also had a few more players at that point that maybe were there, but I thought for all of their woes and difficulties off the pitch, I actually thought their individual talent was actually better than what I thought. This time I thought actually as a squad, it was like they'd come together and actually they were fighting for pride, and they've been fighting for that for so long. There's actually a bit more cohesion within the squad, and it seemed like a tougher game in that. And as I say, they took me back. I thought they actually played some quite nice football, but at the same time, we were just god-awful when it came to getting our foot on the ball. It was all requiring lumping, a flick on. It was really Charlton at their absolute worst in that side, albeit there's another flip side to that, which you can argue in that first half, we were, albeit all of that discussion around them looking quite nice, we were probably the more productive of the two teams. And was it had a bit more of that feeling of that kind of quite classic Charlton performance.
I think we're very direct in the way we play. So like a lot of our sort of threats come through, like we've just mentioned before, like long throws, things like that, getting up into the final third and then sort of rocketing the ball in the box, and that's that sort of style of play. And I think we were like causing them a few problems when we were doing that, because they're not exactly I think one of their stats is terrible for like defending crosses and things, because their defence is quite young and they've not got a lot of experience in that back line. But you're right, like they had players like, I forget, like Jamal Lowe, they had Palmer, they had
Adaramola or whatever.
Yeah,
and
who
I thought was
Jerry
probably
Yates up front, who's not a bad player. Like, so they had a yeah, weird seeing Heskey's son playing. He did all right, to be fair.
Quite good.
But yeah, they have players in there that have quality and that have played at that level for a while. So those players were able to get on the ball and start spraying the ball around. And actually, weirdly, like defensively, I felt like we were like sort of chasing the game a lot. Like, because we gave them so much of the ball, we had like, I see it a lot where they'll run through the lines and all of a sudden you've got Doherty busting a gut to try and chase up with someone, trying to do a little silly little foul to break the play up. We had it down the wings a lot as well, like Clark and Chambers just running after people because we were allowing them to run at us, and it was all very sort of were desperate to get the ball back, but we let them have the ball for so much of the first half that we barely got on the ball at all. And then when you don't have the ball, the chances are really limited.
And they are limited, but there were chances, and I think that started, obviously, we had Godden with the kind of try-to-turn snapshot deflection and came back to, I believe it was Doherty.
Yeah.
Right
Decent
shot,
effort,
decent
yeah.
effort, good effort, okay save.
You
It
kind of
wasn't
want
really-
that falling to Carey, don't you?
Yeah,
But-
yeah.
yeah.
But it was, as I say, it was showing at least a little bit of threat. And as I say, for me, this whole game was never about performance. And I think we've talked about many weeks ago. We talked points over performance. We are so much in just points.
Yeah.
I couldn't
It
care
doesn't
if we
matter.
play
It
the
doesn't
worst
matter.
football ever. But we were, as I say, these were little signs and little glimmers of potentially us doing what Charlton do well, which is stifle a game, maybe not have the performance, but we do on the counter, we do create. And I think that's where we see our XG sometimes quite, even though the game feels terrible, our XG actually is quite competitive against a lot of teams. Strange stat, I know, but I mean, moving on from that chance-wise, from memory in that first half, we had the Godden thinking he was about 10 years younger than he does
Yeah.
for the acrobatic overhead kick.
Good effort,
It's
to be fair.
Do you know, it just highlights what we've been missing with a player like that. And I think we've got to, as I say, he's a player we're going to go on to a little bit later on, but the difference he makes towards things and just that brain of a player who you can tell has played at this level quite a long time.
Just an instinctive striker as well. Like he doesn't need much space at all to just get a chance away, and we've missed that so badly this year. But we know that. But yeah, there wasn't much in that first half to talk through really, because it was mainly us chasing shadows, not really having much of the ball at all. And then when we did, it was the back to the long throws, lumping up a little bit. Dykes was frustrating to watch for me in this one again. I think we can say that about the last couple of games. He's sort of struggled to get himself into the games. And that then in turn then makes it a lot harder for everyone else around him, because if he's not getting into the game, he's the one usually keeping the ball alive and sort of getting us up the pitch. So
the only thing I will say to that is I think even when he is, I do still think he shows some intelligence that a lot of our players lack in regards to sometimes pushing up, winning free kicks, breaking up play. I think sometimes that part of his game, even when he's having poor performances, there is an intelligence to his game.
There is
an experience to his game that I think we severely lack, when the other option to his kind of style of play is Leeburn, and I think Leeburn time and time again shows his naivety on that side. And when he's having a poor game, it's poor in general.
Don't get me wrong. Like having Dykes in the lineup was a no-brainer. Like he's got the experience. He's a player that causes problems. I've just noticed in the last couple, he's really sort of battled to get into the game and not really made much of an impact. But that's not necessarily down to him. That's just probably he's getting marked in the game and stuff like that. But
I think there's a bit of a balance between two. I think he should still be impacting the game more. But yeah, definitely the team's not helping. I think before we move on from that first half, there is a definite controversial moment in the game. One that when I was listening to the Charlton comms, they were umming and ahhing. I didn't and ah. I made the decision as soon as it happened, and my God, we've been on the back end of so many bad decisions.
Yeah,
and I watched it and thought I would be furious. That penalty shout for, I think it was Adaramola.
Yeah.
Absolutely skinned. I can't remember who it was.
Burke. Yeah, it was Burke.
And it is as stonewall a penalty, and not for, obviously they gave the free kick, but it was so, for me personally, it was so clearly in the box.
Well, the thing is, with
I
penalties,
think it was like on the inside of the inside line.
But on the line is a penalty, so even if it's just touching the line.
But to me, it'd be hard to make a decision on whether it was in the penalty area or just on that line. Both for a pen.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Basically, the referee had an easy out because I think he sort of wasn't entirely sure. So he's like, okay, we'll give it as the free kick. And it was obviously right on the edge of the box from the foul.
Think between a lino and a ref, that decision should be made correctly.
The thing is, the lino was the opposite side of the pitch. So I can get why that might be a difficult call for a lino if he's that far away.
Did you see them after the tackle? They were like pointing in the box. You could see the side.
And also, it was really clumsy from Burke. Like, he's just hacked him down.
I thought he had a really poor game, but
he's been out for a
rusty
while.
and I suppose out. He's one that I think when I look at that squad, personally Burke's one that he's maybe done his.
Is he on a short contract? Like, I'm not sure if he'll
be a year or maybe 2 months,
yeah,
but
I can't
for me,
imagine he's on a
Burke's
long
one that I'd be looking quite keenly to move on.
Upgrade.
Because
Yeah.
one, I don't want a player in the squad who can't fulfil.
Well, he's injury
fixtures.
prone, isn't he?
He's so injury prone, and he seems to. If he plays a game, he won't last long, and he'll be injured after X amount.
The thing
of time.
is, you don't get a run. You don't get a run of good form if you're in and out of the side.
And I'm not sure because he isn't blessed with like pace, etc. I'm not sure a rusty Burke is not. it's not what I don't think that's what you want.
Hashtag Rusty Burke.
Yeah.
No, he is one that's at the end, coming towards the tail end of his career as well. So
do you know
he might do well, like dropping down to League One.
I think he's a League One centre back now, but not through maybe the quality, but through definitely
just his body's not really up.
Well,
to
it's
it
not,
anymore,
and then the physical side of the Championship is much more demanding in that way.
But we were really fortunate not to get a pen warded against us there, and maybe that should have been a warning sign for us to say, actually, let's step our game up a little bit here, but didn't massively. But
no, so we go into half time. Second half, we start with a bang. It's
quite Charlton of us, that, to be fair, isn't
well,
it?
it is, yeah, it is, and I think we've actually had a few like it, and I think it was it Watford or was it the Bristol City? I can't remember. There's one where we scored in about the similar kind of time. I think it was Godden.
It's usually after we've had a bit of a poor first half as well, and we seem to come out the traps fairly quick.
But it was another one, kind of put it in the mixer, a bit scrappy, but Godden, once again, a bit like his volley, and it was nowhere near as photogenic as that one. But it had similar essence.
Great touch.
The touch, the close control, and just... If you were to sum it up with a phrase, it would be sniffer dog, wouldn't it? And that's what he is. There's a reason why he's got the nickname, and it was just what we've been missing and taking those one chance, taking that one chance we get. And I think with that, I'd argue there's many games where we've missed glorious chances. That he's kind of made the chance easier and created he has created the chance out of his own ability there.
Good quick feet, close control, and knowing where the goal is as well. And that's something, like we've said, we've missed so much. But
our squad's allergic to. At this rate, Godden probably
he could be top scorer by the end of the season. He barely played.
Top scorer is a bit optimistic, but he's probably in the top three.
I
think
he's
got Carey's
on 8.
I think when he moved back, it's Kelman on 6 from memory.
I see it flash up sometimes. It's
the
like,
next
what
one
is
down
on?
from that, I think, is 3
2
goals.
Or 3. Yeah.
Well, Godden's on 2.
Yeah, and he's barely played.
And I think,
this is why Godden started today. Was he is the sort of player that with one little chance in the box, he's going to have a good strike on him and be able to create those little chances, and that's exactly what happened. And ultimately, if we had him throughout the season, I think we wouldn't see ourselves in the position we're in. I think we would have snuck up the league just through his little goals he gets here and there. Instead, we have really, really badly struggled to score goals. Our strikers, in particular, considering that's their job, is to score goals. Like Leeburn's goal return is abysmal. So
pretty much everyone's.
I can't really single, but I'm just talking if we're looking at strikers. So really nice to see Godden, and also. It's quite poetic, really, that Godden was the guy to get that goal, because at first I was like, it really would be poetic for him to score the one that keeps us in the division, especially after how he got us up last year. Wasn't to be, obviously, at the end of the game.
Well, it wasn't, and before it all went a bit downhill, we did have the Sonny Carey chance. Nice to see him on that kind of driving run again. I thought, albeit not his absolute best. I thought it was a bit better. He was doing those driving runs a little bit more through the midfield. He was picking up the ball a bit better on close control.
He looked quite up for it today.
Yeah, it's definitely a more confident Carey. Not much more he could really do. It was very, very, very unlucky, and unlucky that he also didn't drop back to someone else. But my God, I mean, that was a minor shining light within then what became
just let them back
an absolutely
dominating the game.
Horrific tactical disaster class. We dropped
so deep.
I mean, so unbelievably deep. Like we were playing. The only way I can describe it is we didn't even have a counter. Like players were getting the ball and just launching.
Yeah.
And it was like we had scored a goal against Man City in the FA Cup, and we thought we're going to batten up the hatches and we're going to put 11 men in our box. And not to be disrespectful, because they were quite dangerous at times in regards to the way they would play the ball round, albeit without that kind of final product. But the respect we gave them, and I can only assume...
Done it a few times this year.
But I can only assume that is a tactical decision by Nathan Jones, because if it is not, you would be getting the keeper to go down injured, and you'd be pulling him onto the side and saying, "What the hell are you doing?" And he didn't. I think that was...
Do you think though he's gone there happy to take a point? Because like ultimately, like you're 1-0 up. I know, like we've obviously had Carey hit the post. Apart from that, we've not really created much at all in that game. Do you think he's like, okay, we can ride this out now, and if we do concede one, that'll probably be enough. We'll get the point.
But they're not the kind of team. Look, we know they've got their fragilities, especially in defence. If you are going to do that tactic, you also have to have some nous, in my opinion, to, okay, we're going to go more defensive. Okay, at that point, you've got to make the decision. TC, maybe a Fevrier come on.
We need that.
And we need some attacking outlets.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that, you still need to have an outlet, a counter-attacker, this or that. And it felt like, as I say, the instruction was, if you get the ball, lump it as far away and give the possession straight back to them.
Yeah.
And it was just this attack versus defence against a team I don't think we needed to. We could have invited them on in a defensive manner and picked them off on the counter. And we just had an inability to pick up the game and realise where we could actually get that second goal from. And it just seemed we got it so wrong in that moment. The goal itself,
it's awful.
Not great, is it?
Yeah. I think they were trying to argue a foul on Mannion, but it wasn't. Like he's come out to claim it.
It's poor keeping.
Well, he's come out arms stretched, but then sort of a body's got in the way. But that's not a foul.
But he should still be, in my opinion, taking that ball and then going over the play. If there was contact, it's you still
properly
get the grip on the ball. You then get.
And to be fair, that's something that Mannion generally is very good at. Like he tends to be very good at coming out and claiming the ball. So that's even more frustrating. Is that an element of his game that's usually so strong? But we've had this debate about Kaminsky or Mannion, and we've said, oh, Kaminsky makes a lot of clangers. I'll tell you what, Mannion's recently done exactly the same.
I mean, 12 games, I think it is, give or take, that he's had this season. We can give you two pretty bad clangers that have completely impacted games.
Yeah, at crucial times.
At crucial times. Look, I'm not... I think I sit where I do anyway. There's the discussion we've had regarding that all season.
I think they're similar.
And of recent, I think they're very similar. They both have their pros, both have their cons. I'd say at the moment Mannion has more pros than cons, but I feel like we're in the same boat of, have we got our forever keeper? No, I don't know if Mannion is, as much as there is performances like ones we've had recently that potentially could show there is a player in there. And I think what Mannion does have, as long as I'm getting this correct, which I am, he's 27. So as a keeper,
he's got
the age to go in, whereas Kaminsky's a bit more concerning that he arguably is getting into the prime areas. I thought another one, I mean, the goal itself, I say, is poor. It goes in. Yeah, it's not great. But also, for me, it all stemmed from, as well, an issue we had all game, which was, I thought our press and our way of kind of harrying them was so poor, and we just didn't have that initial particular press, but also we gave them so much space today to cross the ball in, and it just infuriated me, because the one thing, if we had pressed that back, the one thing that maybe a slightly poorer or a slightly out of form team, like crosses, corners, they're goals you can kind of get out of nothing, and one good ball and you can be in trouble. And I felt we gave away so many poor corners,
even
so
at
many
the
poor
start
crosses.
Of the season, when we were like in our good run of form, it was because we were able to still play without the ball a lot of the time. But when we didn't have the ball, we were so like on it, and we were so like in their face, pressing, and that's where it actually meant that even if they did have the ball, we were like able to like press them and actually make life very difficult for them. I think in the last few, like we've made life so easy for the opposition.
But the team looks so knackered, and I understand it gets to the end of the season, but this is where the difference between like relegation, scrapping, and look, I will never say we're fortunate to be in the position we are, because we've, off our own merit, have picked up points. You look at what Portsmouth are doing now. That's the discussion everyone was having with us 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had the 7-point week.
Yeah, that was a huge week.
We've done it in the past, but what's so frustrating is you just need that fire in the belly to really push through at that end of season. It just doesn't feel like that squad.
I think also like that maybe then comes down to Bottle and like characters in the team, and do we have those sort of players that can step up when we really need it? And actually maybe, again, I think it's a mixture of Bottle maybe a bit, and also experience, like having players in there that actually have that because when you have quality, you can get away with not being at your 100% because you can still like get that little pass out of your feet or like do something that's quite creative. Whereas our players, if they're not on it, we really notice it, especially in that middle of the park. Like I bang on about it every week, but and that's where we lose games regularly, is not being able to keep hold of the ball.
I agree. Well, the goal goes in. It wasn't a great end to the game. They look like the much more, once again, the theme of the game, they look like the more dangerous team in possession, but they weren't really creating too much. I never felt too on edge. I thought we had a few moments on counters that we dealt with really poorly.
Subs were really ineffective.
Yeah, really
I think,
ineffective.
well.
And I thought moments where, for example, like TC had some perfect moments where we could have really caused some danger, and he just all looked a bit
I know,
off.
but like even like with TC, like the chant about him running down the wing, people were saying, "Oh, TC like jogging down the wing," because that's how it felt. It didn't feel.
But
like
he did. He picked up the ball at one point, and there was a point to really sprint at, and he was almost like fumbling over it, kind of slow.
But even the one time he did something good, where he sprinted down and sort of got a half decent cross across the box, Leeburn was absolutely on his heels and didn't get anywhere near it. So between the two of them, like you're thinking they're the players that really wanted to come on and actually like give us that boost. If anything, they looked bloody turgid, like so slow and like not really looking that massively up for the game. Like, and then after that, you're like, okay, well, I think this is probably going to be it.
It felt like it filtered into, and I have to admit, there's occasions where I think we are the Charlton who can score a 90th minute goal.
Yeah.
I never got that feeling. I don't know, I just had a feeling of, I felt it before the game. I felt this was such a banana skin. Final whistle goes. Look, it is what it is towards it. It's a really poor performance.
Yeah.
As I say, in the grand scheme, a really important point, I think, for where it puts us positionally.
We're on that magic 50 number now as well, aren't we?
Yeah.
Which is the one that most teams are aiming for. I think this year 50 could be enough now because of how bad Oxford and Leicester are. Albeit, we've sort of said already about how Pompey have gone on that run. You don't know. Leicester could easily do that. Just like something could lighten them up, and you never know. Like honestly, you don't, because you see it. You see it happen.
I think they're quite happy with their wages they're getting. And
well, no, and actually, Leicester actually of those two, Leicester probably on the one. Oxford. You never know. Oxford could just actually knuckle down and get a couple of wins.
Any championship team could do the unthinkable towards it. Like everything, you have to work on like percentages.
Yeah,
I'm just disappointed that, as I say, we're still having conversations about what other teams can do.
Yeah.
As I say, in the grand scheme, a must-win.
The draw's not the end of the world,
No.
but it's the manner of the draw, and I think that's what a lot of fans are really disappointed with, is the manner of these results we've had recently. Like Preston was another one where they didn't have anything to play for, and they looked like the team that were the ones scrapping for their lives.
Well, and also what I felt just coming out of it was just another team who looked better than us.
Yeah.
Like significantly.
Pretty much every team we've played.
Yeah, like, I really cannot think. And one of the only teams I can think who play a somewhat similar style, Oxford, and relegation. I think they play a similar kind of slightly more turgid style.
On paper, we're a bottom three, probably a bottom three.
Weirdly, one of the only other teams I can think of who I think actually when we played against them, we looked all right and I wasn't as impressed. Like, weirdly, teams like Wrexham, I don't think when we played them looked amazing, but there's not many teams I've come up against or I feel like we've come up against this season and I felt we look better. And most teams,
we don't dominate games.
We're ruthlessly effective sometimes with our style of football, but that's what it is. It's ruthlessly effective and sometimes a bit fortunate. So let's move into the individual performances. I don't think one will go over too much today, but we have got, I think, with it, what we feel there is some good performances in there, some shining light, shall we say. I think let's start with one that does put a big smile on every Charlton fan's face. Matty Godden, a starter, a goal scorer, various chances. I thought just the positioning he gets in, the smart movements. Do you know, as a player, you can see he's frustrated playing in this squad sometimes.
But that's the other thing.
Like, you see sometimes right at the beginning, I noticed in the first half, he was calling for the ball and we were so slow.
Getting really annoyed, wasn't it?
Dykes end up flicking it over to him, but it was already at a point where then he was getting closed down. It wasn't it was a little dinky chip ball.
There were a few players in that team today that looked up for it. A few, I'd say a handful, and he sat in that category of like one that looked fired up. I know he's been out, and obviously he wants to get goals and he wants to sort of prove himself back in the Championship, but he looks like he wants that. Some others, you would argue strongly that they didn't look like that. But he is one that always, whenever he plays, for me, like he always gives everything, and you do notice it.
New contract?
I mean, like,
I understand both sides of the argument. If you take Matty Godden for what he is and fully fit,
I think
100% I would be
definitely
renewing his contract. I can understand the conversation around how severe his injury has been this year, and do we want another? Because at some point, and I think Godden's in a different calibre to this, but I always look at someone like a Chuck Saneko as an example, and we don't want passengers in the squad who are constantly on the medical table, and we see as an option at the beginning of the season, but far too little can we rely on him, and that's. I do understand if the club make that decision. What I will say to that is, if we do not make the decision to keep a Matty Godden, my God, do we need to replace with a Matty Godden style player?
Has he got a year left? Has he got one more? No, so it's at the end of this year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, it depends also on him, like what he wants to do. But
he wants to sign a new contract, and I think it's quite an open conversation. I think the conversation is around the club making a decision on being confident towards his fitness.
In the years to come, like the next season, for example, he will be more of an impact player. He won't be like a starter.
No, but still, if he's getting injured in training and he's not
in training and stuff.
Well, and also the club have got to look at: do you invest in, as I say, a similar style, experienced Championship goal-scoring striker who's got a bit of nous away from Matty Godden?
But he's proven in these little spells that he's had, these very small amounts of game time he's had, that he's still got it. Like, he has, and actually, he is one of the only players at the top of the pitch that has actually said, give me the ball, I'm going to put this in the back of the net. And he's done it.
But as I say, I don't think the decision around him is any question on his ability or quality. I think if you go on that alone, he signs a new contract.
He's worth a punt. I don't think he's going to be on stupid money either. Now he's towards the back end of his career. He won't be like asking for silly money. So I would definitely renew it for at least another year. And he wants to be there as well. You tell he actually loves playing for Charlton.
Yeah.
Like,
as a person, as a player, I'd love for us to do it. If we go down the route of signing a similar style player who's not injury prone because of this kind of nasty surgery he's had, I do understand the decision. I'd be gutted because I do really like him, but I can see the club going both ways.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. But regardless, what he has offered to us as a signing at the time when he came in, he was the replacement for Alfie May at the time, which everyone was a bit baffled by, like, because we let our top player go. It's really worked out, and actually he's offered so much.
He's become, I have to admit, for a player who only really played one full season and these little bit parts here, he's become one of my kind of more likeable Charlton players of recent times.
Well, also,
and I have a few, like Darren Pratley. I have.
I
love football, but
but the reason he got that bad injury was because he played through like an injury towards the back, and he did that in order to get us promoted. And so that's another reason why fans absolutely love him.
He writes his name, doesn't he, in Charlton history for what he offered there. As much as say, we talk about other players who maybe we don't see a Championship quality, but Gillespie drops into that. He, for example, is someone who
he'll always go down.
He'll always go down for that goal, for those moments. And I think it's more than just that. He was the assist, partial assist, and put it in the mixer for the Wickham goal, didn't he? Semi-final.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting one, but I think time will tell. But I think he has got. I think the interesting one is probably a bit more of an important part at the end of this season than we maybe anticipated.
Well, he could come good in these last few games, couldn't he? So yeah.
Well, he's already shown us. So theoretically, from his 2 goals, there's 2 points from there in a time that's very crucial.
True.
Well, let's move on. Another one who I think we talked about maybe not last week, but I think a few weeks ago, having an uncharacteristically poor performance, but I thought he was back at his absolute best. Got his assist, which there's not many of those he gets, and that's Lloyd Jones. I thought absolutely monstrous, won every single header.
Did what we sort of used to seeing from him, I think.
Leaps and bounds above. I thought Burke was really poor today, but I thought Jones kind of mopped up. Mari Bell sat as a bit of 50-50.
He was all right.
He looks a bit knackered at the moment. I don't think he's quite got over that kind of. Seems since that international playing quite a few games. I'm not sure. He's been at his absolute.
I know Jones out of the back three was the standout. Like you said, he won every header, like man mountain, what we used to seeing from him. And actually a leader performance again. He was one of the ones that got a bit of a grip of the game and actually like sort of bullied the men he was in front of. Like I said, the reason that he's so well regarded in that team is for those reasons. Like, he just is a brick.
Well, I watched quite a few videos on like social media where they'll go through the top like 3 players in every position throughout the course of this season. And consistently from the beginning of the season through to the end, Lloyd Jones predominantly sits at like 3rd place in that, behind a few very, very good centre-backs.
Yeah.
But he's always in that conversation. As I say, he's just been such an immense part of, when we start this season, he will be such a huge part of what we've done. And I think such a huge part that with next season building around.
He's like the spine, isn't he, at the back of the defence? And I think what we're missing is a spine down the middle at the moment. Which
He's one of the only positions. There's not many positions in our squad where we say we've got the championship ready player there. Move on. A lot of positions we're umming and ahhing.
Yeah, there's no upgrade needed there. Like, he is more than capable of that.
Well, I think for most fans, it's a worry of making sure we don't lose him.
Yeah, his age is a factor that actually helps us.
I've got two views. One, I think the age helps us. He had 3 actually. One, the age. 2, he had the contract relatively recently signed, which pushes his price up. Would teams be willing to? And I also believe he's not the most fashionable modern defender, and I think he suits us so well. And I think there are other clubs he could suit, like I don't want to say Millwall, that's horrible. But there are other clubs he would suit, but I just don't know. Oh, God, I thought that.
Just shuddered.
Kramer and Jones.
Yeah, no, but another point about Jones actually is that he is in line for probably captaincy in the future as well. Like, maybe next season we might see.
I think he's odds on for it, isn't he?
So again, like, that's another reason for him to stay. Actually, really sort of become a key member of that team, which he already is. But a leadership performance from him today, and like, difficult game because we allowed them to come onto us so often. But he did do what he needed to do in that game.
And I think we had Lloyd Jones as the incredibly solid, exactly Mr. Reliable, knowing what we're going to get. But I thought someone who has done no harm to Charlton fans' opinion, and someone who just keeps impressing me, and someone I'm so excited for next season. It is a centre-back, but it's a substitute. Colin Shishenje back in the lineup, coming on off the bench. He's such a breath of fresh air, and I don't know if we are just so used to such terrible football. But he seems like he has come from a mindset and teams that just don't buy into this, I'm going to lump it. He fizzes balls into our strikers that maybe they can pick up and make a quick move off. He plays a pass and does something that is so alien to our whole squad. He runs forward.
This is a centre-back you're talking about as well.
And this is a centre-back, and he looks like arguably one of our more creative runners in the team. He seems to have a really good understanding, I think, with Harry Clarke, and I think he brings out actually the best in Harry Clarke, brings out the best of Shishenje back and forth, and they were playing these lovely one-pass move on another pass
they were
space. My God, if we could just install some of that into the rest of our lineup and look for, I'm not saying 11 Colin Shishenjes, which I'm sure
he's quite maverick, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm sure our Kenyan fan base would very much like that. But
arguably, though, when he came on, he was probably when he came on the pitch, he was probably our best attacker and defender in that game.
That's concerning.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're talking about a centre back who's come off the bench.
But I also thought you take him as you say. We talk about that marauding side, and I think a breath of fresh air of what he brings. He's so happy to just quickly play a ball into midfield,
out of the defence as well.
But he also presses, he intercepts, and I think categorically he has got a mistake in there because he can have that erratic push-out nature. But
I think you allow for that, though. If you have a player like that, the amount of times that he will actually like break us up the pitch, and like even like he sees the little gaps, and he'll either, like you said, fizz a pass into the channel, which we haven't been doing all season. Whether it's down the line to, like you said, down to Clarke, or if it's inside into the strikers, which you saw him do that quite a few times once he came on. He drives into the space as well. If he sees a little gap, he'll sprint into it. On top of that, when he's in a defensive situation, I noticed like quite early on that he was just sprinting out, and actually he had cover, so he was allowed to do it. But it's nice to see because it's a high press.
I really like him.
Yeah,
as a player, I'm so excited for his future.
Yeah,
and I think what's so exciting about him as well is he's 22.
Yeah,
there's a player there to be moulded, and it is a player who is learning the league.
Yeah,
adapting from divisions that maybe are very different to the Championship.
Yeah,
and I think such an exciting one, and someone who I'm really excited for next season to see in the Championship.
100%. I'm really excited to watch, and I hope he actually starts getting some real good game time. I know he had a slight injury, is why he got sort of dropped back out of the side, but really, really exciting to see how he develops Yeah,
in the Championship.
in the Championship, of course.
We're just going to keep saying it. It will come true. Well, there's the positives of the game. I think there was some negatives to delve into. Once again, don't want to go too heavy into this, but I think number one is the number one currently,
Yep.
and it's Mannion.
Yeah. It is disappointing because we actually recently were saying how good he's been.
But the problem is, and I know with keepers it's so unfortunate because you make one mistake and it is so much more than a striker who misses a one-on-one or an open goal or whatever. But at this point of the season, it's so important not to be giving silly goals away, and especially with an importance of a game, you need that level-headed, you need that strength, and it was just so disappointing in a game where realistically he was tested very little. I think.
Well, I don't think we're going to see.
But he had one
break
save.
us down,
he had one save in the game. I think they only had a couple of shots on target. Overall, the performance, as I say, there wasn't really much to be able to comment on too much. I thought also as well today, and this may be tactical, so it's difficult to criticise too much, but I also thought he held onto the ball very long once he picked it up from like a cross or whatever. Some of that might not have been our players showing to be able to make that quicker counter, but yeah, that goal alone just sits him in there. And
yeah, to be fair as well, like you said about him holding on to the ball, but the one time he rolled it out quickly, he rolled it into the path of Burke, who had no one in front of him, and we nearly conceded from that. So
yeah, so maybe got a bit scared by that, but
maybe that shook him up a bit. But I mean,
do you think it? I mean, I know we've discussed, but do you think it does? I think 100% it starts to open up this conversation over the Kaminsky Mannion again, because realistically, Mannion came in, and I think Kaminsky came under a hell of a lot of criticism. I think a lot of the time actually quite unjustified, unjustified, and I think it was unfair. Albeit we've discussed many a time, I think both our viewers that we've been a bit disappointed with Kaminsky, but the golden throne we'd put Mannion on, I think we are starting to see what.
I used to see comments of like, "Oh, where are all the Mannion haters now?" and all this stuff, or like vice versa. But
he's got his flaws, hasn't he?
But actually, when you go down that avenue of like, oh, you know, I always said Mannion was better than Kaminsky, or the vice versa. Both of them have had moments where they've like not been up to it, and actually that's what you tend to get with all keepers, but some less than others, and they're the ones that make the least mistakes are the ones that make it to the top.
I think that's where Kaminsky gets more heat on him though. And that probably is the fact we signed him to improve on what we had.
And he's on big money as well.
Yeah, and I think the view is, well, Mannion would have done the same job, if not maybe in some ways better, some ways worse. But overall, he would have offered very similar. And I think with Mannion, I would stand by that now, as much as I thought Kaminsky was ahead of him. I think his performances have proved he's on the same level. But I think these are reminder moments that he's not this sensational out of nowhere keeper that's going to be with us for the next kind of the answer for the next.
The only thing is though, summer. I know, like we were talking about goalkeeper situation, but in the summer, goalkeeper's not going to be the priority. I think that midfield.
I'd be happy. Mannion and Kaminsky.
They could definitely go for.
Mannion and Kaminsky are a good pair to have in. The only thing you sometimes have in there is, do you just get a free transfer keeper from like a
more
experienced Prem Championship, whatever. Sometimes
we were linked with Begovic, weren't we?
And sometimes a player comes up that just makes sense, and that might be moving on Kaminsky, who knows. So, but yeah, as I say, not to bash him too much, but Mannion definitely in there.
Yeah.
I think the next one we go into, and it's not a player, because I think we feel like the players. There's a lot of, we've discussed so much recently, haven't we? These meh performances, these very vanilla performances that we struggle to put them in really bad, but really struggle to put them in good. But I think someone who has to take a lot of responsibility today, for me personally, is Nathan Jones. And for that, I think there was some real tactical inefficiencies, especially towards the end of the game. And that switch, I can understand the first half not being the most pretty. We were going for a certain tactic. Arguably it was effective because we got our goal. But that moment, to not get on top of that, not to change personnel in the right way, because I think we did change personnel, but maybe just not in the right way. But the tactics we installed there were rotten. They were horrible. I was so angry at them. That ultra defensive, I messaged you after the game. It angered me so much watching that. And I just think it's got to come on his head, because I cannot understand how that has not been picked up. If that was not a tactic and that is the players, the manager should be going ballistic at them on the sideline. I feel it was a tactic we decided to go for, and I think it was so wrong.
I think I've said it a few times like this year, is I am happy for us to go to this more defensive style of play and grind results out this season because of the limited squad that we have and the amount of players we have to maybe implement a style of play that maybe Jones is aiming for down the line. What I'm not, and I think this is probably the view of most Charlton fans, is that what we aren't happy to see is another summer of signing better players and then it's still being the same style of football. That has to evolve. If we don't see that football evolve, then there's a problem. But in this game,
But I can accept defensive football. I've got no problem. Similar to you, I can accept it this season. What I can't accept and what frustrates me is just tactical ineptness in regards to ultra defense. Like, there's defensive, and then there is literally backs up against the wall, like setting up war. And I do not understand.
So in terms of the players he brought on, obviously he brought Sishenje on to replace Burke, who wasn't having a great game, so that made sense. He then brought on TC, Leeburn and Gillespie, I think, all at the same time.
That was after the goal.
I know it was, but and I get that because obviously the goal came.
But we conceded in the 40. No, sorry, we score in the 49th minute, and we decide that is the moment we go ultra defensive.
Yeah,
that is mad.
Do you think that that's like a tactical thing on Jones's behalf, or is that the players just shrinking?
It's tactical.
Yeah,
because if Jones was not happy, Mannion goes down injured. He pulls all the players in and he gives them a dressing down like he always does when something is tactically not happening. He was on the sideline, bringing on subs, changing bits and pieces, but I think he was happy with what we were doing, and I think we were trenching in, thinking they are historically
they're
a
not
team
going to break us
who are not going to break us down. I think in the first half they showed they could huff, they could puff, they could do a little bit of kind of niceties, but were very little in the creative side, and I think he was confident.
To be fair though, do you not think like without that goalkeeping error, it probably would have paid off? Like, we probably would have won it one.
Yeah, but I think to do it, it's like everything, and I think we've discussed this before, when you play lovely attacking football, when you lose sometimes people accept it because that's the style of football you play, but it's quite enjoyable on the eye. That only works if it works, and yes, I understand that argument, but when it does not work and when you drop points in such an important game...
That's true. Maybe
I do not care for it. I think if you drop points in a game, then...
it's on your head.
It's on your head.
Yeah.
And there's an argument to say if we had have actually gone for the throat in that game a little bit more with a little bit more counter-attacking nous, we may have been 2-0 up at that point, and that goalkeeping error wouldn't have had as much of an impact.
Football is fine margins. I think, like like we said, if Carey's goal, if that one that hits the inside of the post goes in, it's a different game. But that is football. Like, there are moments in games that change games, and obviously the error from our side massively changed it on the Wednesday side of things. So. He does need to take some responsibility for some of these tactical decisions he's making, and I think I am still in the camp of a lot of the decisions he makes are based on the players and the sort of team that he has available. What I am really, really interested to see is how that evolves next season, and if it doesn't, I think there's going to be a lot of heat on him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's already got He's got a group of people with pitchforks behind him in the fan base.
Yeah.
Albeit, I think they seem more than what they are. I think most level-headed Charlton fans do.
Yeah,
understand.
I think the majority understand where we've come from and what Jones has managed to achieve with the limited sort of resources that he has. That there has to come a time where that then gets assessed. So
I do find it amazing though with this, and I know I'll come into some stick for it, and I know there's fans who do not see it this way, but what a fickle game football is sometimes as well in regards to, just for me, Nathan Jones has earned, if he keeps us up this season and got us promoted last year, for me he's earned the respect and the time to have another hit at it with that second season in the Championship. The amount who are online, etc., who say Nathan Jones out now, this and that, I just think, do you know what? Sometimes you can really wish for this, but sometimes the grass isn't greener, and sometimes also in football, I do think certain managers and players do earn the level of respect to give them a chance in that another year. If we're 20 games into next season doing the same thing and sitting in the same position and sitting in a relegation battle, yeah, okay, I understand that, but I just think to not say that if he does keep us up this year, he got us promoted out of nowhere on the back of a team who had sent 3 years in borderline relegation battles in League One, if that does not earn you a little bit of time to work through the tough times, I don't know what does.
Well, also, if he keeps us up, then he's done a brilliant job this season, to be fair, albeit like not the prettiest football. But what he has got on his side is the owners 100% are behind him. I think you can tell that. Like,
I think that's where I don't, as I say, fans. At the
so
end
we've
of
got
the
to suck up as
day,
fans, actually, if we don't
fans'
enjoy it.
opinions
It's what it
towards
is,
it.
isn't it?
I respect the opinion towards it, and I can actually understand where it's born from. I just don't when you look at it on a more kind of fair level and
Well, it's also it's taking a step back, like you said, rational.
yeah, I think a
sort of
rational level. I think I find it a bit of an irrational argument to say that it should be Jones out. I just not on board, don't understand. But hey ho.
Today wasn't his finest hour in terms of tactics, but
No.
we did come away with a point.
Yep.
So,
and I think the last one we want to move on to is just the final negative, and I think it's a split over two players really, and I think this comes into probably a bit harsh to criticise the performance today as much, albeit I think there was definitely some negatives to both. But I think it brings open a maybe slightly wider talking point, and that will be TC and Miles Lieburn. And I think the performance itself, I mean, I'll do TC, you can do Lieburn. I thought with TC, it feels like far too often at the moment, and I think I've always thought it would be quite critical at the beginning of the season, especially when there was comments over his work ethic, his this, his that, his desire. I thought that was actually quite unwarranted at the beginning of the season. As the season's gone on, and especially of recent performances, albeit there's been a few better performances in there kind of littered in, I do think far too often we are seeing this lethargic TC. Some of those runs today, as I say, they're just frustrating, and I have got to the decision with TC. I think his time has come, and I think where with TC, a lot of Charlton fans hold on to is they say, "Oh yeah, but he's our attacking outlet. When he's not in the team, we miss him." Yeah, no, I think we do. I think he highlights the shortcomings we have within our squad. I don't think he's the answer. And I think a pacey, dangerous winger or striker or whatever is very much needed within that squad, which is quite defensive, quite turgid, quite slow. But is TC, if you like, for his electric pace, yeah, 100%. But do we need a different player who has got more ability, more championship experience
as well,
as the end product?
Yeah.
And it's just fiercely more consistent because, as I say, I don't know if you get end product amazingly at this level, but 1,000,000% to me. I also think he's an asset in regards to value because he is still quite young, and I think there is a saleability to him. And I think sometimes do you accept, rather than let his contract run out to a certain point, do you just decide?
You know what will happen though? You guarantee it. We'll sell him and he'll go on somewhere else and do that. Like, rip
But I think
up.
I'm happy for that because I don't think we're going to play a system that suits him into his best position, which I think is also an issue definitely within his development at Charlton. But I think I could happily accept that because if that's some players,
good money for him as
some players also need that move on to then accelerate off and go off. And actually, by staying here, is he ever going to do it at Charlton?
Do you think maybe he's checked out a little bit now? Maybe he's in his head. He's like, okay, well, maybe I have come to
maybe
because I think he does feel a bit of stick. We saw it a couple of times where he didn't go over to the fans and stuff because he was getting a bit of jip like at certain points of the season. Maybe he's just realised.
I might be a bit harsh in saying selling.
Yeah,
I think it's either sell him to cash in on the asset, or for me, he needs to go and have another season in League One and getting some real serious numbers in, coming away from a season with 9-10 goals, quite a number of assists, and having a really good season somewhere to build that confidence back up and come back. Because as I say, I do feel he does seem like a bit of a shadow of a player, and he's just, to say, odd little glimpses of performances. But for me, whatever's happening at the moment, there has to be a change, and that's got to be loan or cash in.
I think a lot of people have argued he's a much better impact player, but today there was no real impact. Like, he had one dangerous cross, but apart from that, it was really frustrating to watch him.
No. Lieburn, I'll let you take
I thought
reins.
Lieburn, again, he's another one, though, that when he comes on, he has moments where he sort of has quick feet. We always say how for such a massive sort of 6'5", whatever he is, he's a lump. Like, he's got quick feet and he can beat his man, but all too often when you watch him chasing after the ball, he's so slow. He looks like he's running in sort of lead boots. Today, like, he just didn't really make an impact at all, apart from maybe he had one little area right where he's down the right hand side and sort of beat his man. But he for what sort of ability he has and the sort of danger that he could cause, because we talk about Makama for Norwich, and we say how effective he is at using his frame, just getting in the box, turning, getting a shot away. We don't really see that at all from Lieberman, and again, that's a time where today he could have come on and really made a nuisance of himself, and you're coming up against inexperienced defenders who would really struggle against it if you did put your body around.
I think it's quite straightforward with Lieberman, personally, to me. I don't think he's a championship player. And I have to admit with Lieberman, I'm not sure I think he ever will be. I think he's potentially quite a decent League One player. But even there, his whole Charlton career has been predominantly filled with purple patches, hasn't he? He's had little spells, but predominantly he's cut quite a frustrating figure. He had that long-term injury, which I don't think helped with his development. But for me, once again, I think there's a saleable asset there. I think there's League One clubs who would be very interested in him. And for me, there's the saleable asset, or once again, he needs to go out like we've done with, and albeit I think slightly older than like your Dan Carnews, but I think similar. He's only like 22.
Yeah, no, he's only.
I think you've got two options. You either get him out on loan, he's got to have a really prolific season in League One, or you sell him to that kind of club. And once again, if these players, look, we've sold players in the past who go on to have accelerating careers and do a lot better than what we think, but as I say, sometimes it does take that, and I think League
Well,
TC.
it frees up those sort of areas where we can bring in more quality as well, and players that we believe are probably going to perform much better at that level. I think that's desperately what we need, is more consistent players in the positions of the pitch where we can rotate out and we know they're going to come on and be very solid, rather than so hot and cold, which is what we see from both of those.
They're fiercely similar with their experiences of how they've kind of their careers at Charlton. TC's played a little bit more, I believe, because Lieberman's injury.
Yeah, I think Lieberman's had about 60, 70 games.
Yeah,
and I think
but I just think they've shown they've always been through. It's not like they absolutely smashed it at League One and they've really struggled to adapt to the Championship. They've both just cut very frustrating Charlton careers where they clearly are talented players. But it just never's quite clicked, and I think with both of them at the same time, with the development of where we're going as a club, I just feel it's the right time. As I say, it's got to be loan or sell.
This summer's going to be a massive summer for Charlton.
Do you not think there'd be takers for Lieberman and Campbell? I think there's a
will.
market to be selling.
There will,
and look at the financials. And I think what we are as a club, and what we are going to have to accept as a club as well, is we do also need to get better to develop and to grow as a club, and to be able to spend the kind of money we are. We are also going to have to become a much more effective selling club as well. And choose the right times, because we've been woefully awful at that over the years.
Now we're in the Championship, we've got a bit more clout to actually be able to do that. I think before we were getting players were getting plucked from us left, right and centre because we were a League One club and we didn't really have much clout. So I think that will help.
The one historically that always hurt me is a Rebo. Rangers for free, and
we've had quite a few.
I'm pretty sure the one as well, Ezri Konza, I think when we sold him,
Brentford.
we sold him, and 1 year later they sold him for like 12, 13 million or something.
Yeah, we've had a few where we've got stung, but maybe these times where we're in the Championship and we're able to sell our assets, we'll get more money for them and it will be more worthwhile. This summer's intriguing to me. I think it's going to be a real eye opener in terms of where we see the club want to go in terms of the progression.
Do you reckon there's an argument to sell them both and finance a move for Russell on to come back to the club?
Get him back in. But I might actually see what he's got in his locker.
Yeah.
No,
I don't think we ever will on that one.
No.
Well, there we are. That's the game. As I say, probably spent a bit more time speaking over that, ranting, having our therapy session together, because it really did feel like that at the end of the game. As I say, I think my biggest takeaway was I felt very frustrated at the end, albeit I think once the calmness kind of leveled back down, as I say, it is looking a bit more positive. Moving on, as I say, we really are coming into the business end of the season now. So we're moving on to what will be a huge, huge game. Back at the Valley, not a happy stomping ground for us at the moment with recent form, but a team who we have had happy experiences against this season. One of the best memories of the season, and that'll be Ipswich at home on Wednesday at 7:45. I think what's interesting about this game, and if I'm right in thinking, I think both Oxford and Leicester are playing on Tuesday night. So we potentially are in a position there where if, let's just pray to God with everything, and as much as I've said I don't want it to be on other clubs, we're at the point where we do need a little bit of that. If Oxford can lose, please, and Leicester, we're at a point where we arguably are very, very nearly there, but a point would mathematically put us over the line.
Yeah.
Where do you see this game going?
I said before, like Oxford, Ipswich have got to get points on the board because they want to get that second place, and Millwall keep winning, so Millwall aren't going away.
Well, you've got at the moment they've got 2 games in hand.
They have,
but they are 1 point behind Millwall at the moment, so could take a 5-point lead.
but also they've not had some. They've had some pretty disappointing results recently. They lost to Portsmouth, didn't they? They lose to Portsmouth. Yeah. So like they're losing to teams that are down the bottom. Because the teams they're coming up against, like us, are fighting for another reason. So this is going to be a really interesting game. They have the quality all over the pitch. Philogene, they've got Jack Clark. They've got players that are so good at that level, and they're the ones that really actually just give them a little bit of space, which we do fairly regularly, which is a worry, is they will hurt you.
We are going to. We know what they're like. We've got them, Southampton. There's teams like them, and I think even the game we beat them 3-0, that first half they absolutely battered us and probably should have been in the lead. And then we had this little moment in the game where we just a flurry of chances that all went in. Look, let's be honest and let's call a spade a spade. We are going to go into this pretty ultra defensive. We're going to try and keep it as tight as possible, and we're going to try and get that one chance, that 1 or 2 chance to get it. As I say, I think weirdly coming into the end of the season, as tough a game it is probably the kind of one, especially when we're at a point now where I think a point is enough now probably just to get us over the line. I think one more point would do it.
Yeah.
If we go into, and I think this goes beyond this one, if we go into this game, the whole game, and the Swansea game in that manner, do I think over one of those 3 games we will pick up a point?
Yeah.
I do. As poor as we look at the moment, and as real bad we look, we will in one of those games hit a bit of fortunate luck where nothing's going right for the other team.
Yeah.
And I think we will pick up that point. Famous last words.
No, I agree. I think there'll be a game in there that we'll be able to scrape a point out. We might, who knows? We might even get a win in there from one of those 3.
Don't get carried away.
I know. But what I would say is, as well with Ipswich is, like I said, the pressure is on them as much as it is on us. We're at home. Oh no, we've not been great at the Valley recently, but who knows? Like we have tried to rationalise these games, looking at them on paper, and we've not got many of them right this season, and therefore, who knows? Like we might have one of those games where we just turn up. Like it hasn't happened that much.
I'd say it wouldn't shock me. Weirdly, as I say, I think we've said this all season. The Sheffield Wednesday is a team I'm surprised we didn't lose to, and then go and beat an Ipswich. And we look at if we look at teams we've got results of recently, we look at Middlesbrough, for example. Like they are
Ipswich are playing Middlesbrough as well, aren't they? Before I think that might be tomorrow.
So no, that must be Saturday, isn't it?
It might have already been since we've filmed tonight, but
it may have been.
Yeah, that's who they're gaming before us.
It might be tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a tough game for them because those again, they're playing a team up and around them. So they've got so many good players. Like it's going to be a really tough game. But
as you say, there's lots of factors at this stage of the season that come into it.
Yeah.
Well, let's quickly before we finish have a look over the league table, which I'll bring up now. So yeah, as I say, for what has felt like a pretty depressing kind of conversation around things, I think that table actually, as I say, it's frustrating. We shouldn't be where we are now, but 50 points. West Brom below us on 49, Blackburn below us on 49, but a game extra having been played. And then we've got Oxford, Leicester, and Sheffield Wednesday in the relegation zone. Oxford on 44, so 6 points behind us. And Leicester 9 points behind us with 3 games to go. So to me, Leicester are done. In
terms of catching us,
in terms of catching us, they've got a. I mean, I think they're done no matter what. The only team they can really catch now is Blackburn because they've got that extra game in.
They're playing Blackburn as well, I think.
Yeah, so I think that's. I can't see it with the performances they've been putting in recently. I'll be very surprised.
It's properly like rotten there now.
Yeah, I don't see it. I think Leicester are goners. So Oxford. So I think that's how we've got to look at it. Look, could Blackburn or West Brom overtake us 100%, especially in the form we are now?
Doesn't really matter though.
It doesn't really matter. We've got to beat one of. There's 3 teams that can go down. Leicester, I think, are down. They're not going to catch us. I'm not going to say 100%, but Leicester are not going to catch us, I don't think.
Yeah.
So Oxford, as I say, they've got to win 2 out of 3. We've got the more favourable goal difference by 2, which isn't great, but
that's quickly, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A question though: if you were given that points tally of 50 with 3 to go at the start of the season, you'd take that, wouldn't you?
Yeah. 100%.
I think
And
the frustration comes from how it's happened, how it's played out, and where we've been, and
I think
where
it
we've
is,
ended
but
up.
I also think it's been an ever-building thing of this second half of the season, particularly, and probably that actually started a little bit later. We had such a strong start, and ever since that torrid run of form where we really catapulted, well, actually the opposite, I don't want the opposite, catapulting, but plummeted down the table. We then kind of picked back up, dragged ourselves back out, and now we're going back in. But really, have we completely and utterly picked up any performances since then?
Not massively.
No, I think we've put in some characterful performances, but the actual kind of football and stuff, I can see where the frustration, the negativity comes from, because it is a long, drawn-out period of pretty poor football.
Do you know what it is as well? It's like finishing on a low. That's quite like, you're sort of like, oh, it feels like you're deflating.
But I've said all season, I think if we had had a more balanced out 50-point season, we'd probably be sitting a lot more positive.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That is fair.
Than what we are. I think it's been an ever building thing at Charlton for a little while, and as I say, we had that.
People would have liked to see us just go out with a bit of fight, like to stay up in that regard.
I know that's
sort of
what's
gone
been,
out with a
that's
whimper,
what's
haven't
been
we?
missing with the last 5 or 6 games. I don't think it's a question of us expecting us to turn around quality overnight, but it is the lack of fight, the lack of effort, the lack of desire, which once again, at the beginning of the season when we were picking up points, we had it in abundance, and that's what's so frustrating. But yeah, I think as a Charlton fan, it feels like we're
so close.
I'm just so frustrated because we had so many opportunities not to be having this conversation now where we can't guarantee.
That's the frustration.
Obviously, we're going to be going up to the next home game.
Last one of the season.
Yes, the last home game of the season against Hull. And I think when we booked that, we very much felt, or we decided we were going to it, we very much felt it was going to be the kind of on the beach, quite happy day, and had a few pints. And I'm now thinking, is it going to be the
sweaty,
having a few pints just to settle the nerves? I'm hoping not. I'm hoping in some way results turn throughout this week with us turning up for once, and some fixtures going in our favour that I can still just be on that kind of more on the beach.
I'm hoping that even if we go into that whole game needing something, I think we've got more than enough to actually get something in that game. So, it's
just you're just adding the pressure.
Yeah, the
That's
pressure.
What we've been so guilty of in this final stage of the season. But
we're used to that, aren't we?
Of course we are. We're doing it the Charlton way. There's no other way we'd do it. So, well, there we are. Well, thank you very, very much for listening. As always, if you do like the episodes, like the videos, please do make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. As I say, we'll be back again to record on the night of the Ipswich game. Yeah, so on Wednesday night. And fingers crossed by then, we will be looking into this camera saying we are mathematically safe. Bloody get the champagne out, because
I'll bring a bottle.
Yeah, I think it's frozen by the time we'll have got there. But yeah, well, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you on the next one.